Hey, this is DJ Costanza from Sensori Collective, bringing you another tutorial. This one covers a few quick ideas on how you can chop up drum breaks. They're not the only ways to do it, but these techniques have worked pretty well for me. Let's get started. So I have the drum break queued up on my turntable over here. I've already made sure the mixer levels are alright, so I'm not going to get any clipping when I record. And so let's record.
Love you now. Yeah.
Okay, the first technique for this is just to find a loop. Not really much explanation needed other than that. You just find a loop point and you repeat the drums over and over again. This is just a 1-bar loop. The only thing I really have to add to this is that this loop starts on the 1 beat. It's a 1-bar loop, 4/4 time signature, and it starts on the 1. You can also, it doesn't necessarily have to start on the 1. Like if I shift where this is starting, this will most likely still sound pretty good, but it just doesn't, it might start on a different beat. So just remember that when you're looping up some drums. The first technique for chopping drum breaks that I'll show you is to use evenly spaced chops based on the time signature and the number of beats in the original drum break. For example, if you have a 2-bar loop that's in a 4/4 time signature, you might chop it into 4 half notes or 8 quarter notes or 16/8 notes and so on. This is a really good way to be able to add your own style to the drum arrangements, but still get to keep the unique timing of the original drum break. A classic example of this is the song Top Billin' by Audio 2, which samples Impeach the President by the Honey Drippers. For my drum break, I decided to take a 2-bar loop, and here's an Audacity, and I exported it and open it up with Recycle. Here's what it sounds like. And I decided that I want this to be chopped up into 8 slices. So there we go, 8 slices. Next in Reason, I took all of those slices and I put them into a Kong drum designer, and so it's on these 8 pads, and I put them all into a mute group. You see here they're all in mute group A. That's so they won't overlap when you play them. And I also pitched them down a little bit. You notice they're all at pitch -22. That's just so I could record a pattern at a slower tempo compared to the original. And so here's a pattern I recorded. The second drum chopping technique is to isolate each individual sound in the drum break and then build a drum kit with the samples that you like the best. This is the same 2-bar loop I was using before, but instead of using evenly spaced chops, I've now added slices at each individual drum. So let's hear what this sounds like. After exporting the sounds to WAV files, usually you'll end up with a list of sequentially named files, as you can see here. At this point, I like to rename the files based on the type of drum being played. This is just how I like to organize my drums. It's pretty similar to the way that a lot of producer kits are set up. So just listen to this one, rename that one to a bass drum, that one's a snare, and so on. It's a tedious process. You don't need to see me do it. I've already done it anyway. So here's the same list of files, but they're grouped into whether they're a bass drum, a hi-hat, or a snare, and if there was like open hi-hats or claps or any other type of drum sound, I would follow a naming convention for those as well. Once you have even a few drum breaks chopped up like this, you can basically make a producer kit with your own sounds. Even if all you have is James Brown Funky Drummer and it's been used thousands of times, your copy of the record and the way you record it can give you a unique sound when you piece it back together based on the individual drums. In Reason, I've created a drum kit from those samples. I picked out 2 kicks. They have slightly different sounds. And I picked out 2 hi-hats with slightly different sounds. And I have 2 snares with very different sounds. The first one, this one has a long decay and it's used as the main snare that's going to hit on beats 2 and 4. And the second one, this one has a much shorter decay and it's used as a ghost note for accenting before kicks. When you're only using a few samples from a drum break, sometimes it can sound too repetitive or not very dynamic. And to add more variety, you can set up note velocity to control sample volume, so you can be playing the same sound over and over again, but you get a mix of loud and soft hits, and it'll sound something like this. This is a subtle effect, but it can make a huge difference. Over here, I have a pattern that I recorded, and you can see there's many different note velocities down here. And I have the same pattern over here, so it's exactly the same notes, but the velocity is all identical. And let's hear what this sounds like. So that sounds pretty good, but let's listen to the one with different velocities and you should be able to hear the difference. It just sounds better. Okay, that covers it for this tutorial. Before I go, I'll play the looped drums, the pattern based on evenly timed chops, and the pattern based on individual drum chops. Like I said at the beginning, there are many ways to chop up drums, and really this is just scratching the surface. But hopefully it can give you some ideas that you can use in your own beats. This is DJ Costanza on behalf of Sensori Collective. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I'm out.